you're talking to your dog. You say one word. Suddenly, his head tilts. And for a split second, it feels like he understands exactly what you're saying. Millions of dog owners have had this moment. A simple conversation, a familiar voice. Then, that unmistakable tilt, ears perked, eyes locked on yours, as if your dog is trying to solve a puzzle only he can see. Which raises a surprisingly difficult question. Why do dogs tilt their heads? It sounds like something scientists would have figured out decades ago, but they haven't. Not because nobody has looked into it. Researchers have spent years studying this behavior. Yet even today, there's no single explanation everyone agrees on. Because the closer scientists look, the stranger the mystery becomes. And by the end of this video, you'll see why that adorable little head tilt might reveal far more about how dogs think than most people realize. Let's start with the explanation almost everyone assumes. Dogs tilt their heads to hear better. At first glance, it makes perfect sense. Dogs rely heavily on sound to understand the world around them. Their hearing is dramatically more sensitive than ours, allowing them to detect frequencies humans can't even hear. And unlike human ears, dog ears are highly mobile. They can swivel, rotate, and adjust independently, helping dogs pinpoint where sounds are coming from. So, when an unfamiliar or important sound appears, tilting the head could help fine-tune that process. If you've ever made a strange noise near a dog, you've probably seen it happen. The head tilt appears almost instantly, like a reflex wired directly into the brain. From a survival standpoint, that's useful. A predator rustling in the bushes, a distant animal call, a sound coming from an unknown direction. The faster a dog can identify where it came from, the better. So, case closed, right? Not exactly. Because dogs don't tilt their heads at every sound. They don't usually do it when a truck drives past, or when the vacuum cleaner starts, or when random background noises fill a room. Instead, many dogs tilt their heads most often when a human is talking directly to them. And that's where the hearing theory starts to fall apart. Because this behavior doesn't seem triggered by sound alone. It seems connected to communication. And that led some researchers toward a very different explanation. One researcher proposed something unexpected. Maybe dogs aren't trying to hear us better. Maybe they're trying to see us better. Think about what happens when a dog looks directly at your face. For many breeds, there's a problem sitting right in front of their eyes, their muzzle. Dogs with longer snouts naturally have part of their own face blocking their forward view. When they stare directly at a person, that muzzle can partially obstruct important visual information, especially around the mouth and lower face. And that's a bigger deal than it sounds. Human communication isn't just words. It's facial expressions, smiles, raised eyebrows, tiny movements around the eyes and mouth, signals so subtle we often don't realize we're sending them. Dogs have spent thousands of years evolving alongside humans. During that time, they've become extraordinarily skilled at reading our expressions. So if a dog can't clearly see your face, tilting its head might simply provide a better angle, a clearer view, a better chance of understanding what you're trying to communicate. Researchers decided to test this idea. They compared dogs with different muzzle lengths. If the theory was correct, breeds with shorter, flatter faces should tilt their heads less often because they have less visual obstruction. And that's exactly what they found. Dogs with shorter muzzles generally tilted their heads less frequently than dogs with longer ones. The difference wasn't absolute. Many short-faced dogs still tilted their heads, which meant muzzle length couldn't explain everything. But the findings suggested something important. The head tilt might not just be about hearing. Vision appears to matter too. For a while, that seemed to settle it. But in 2021, a team of researchers in Hungary looked past the anatomy and stumbled onto something much deeper. They wanted to know if head tilting was connected to actual understanding. To test that idea, scientists worked with 40 dogs and their owners. The task was simple. Owners would ask their dogs to retrieve specific toys by name. Bring the ball, bring the rope, bring the duck. Some dogs knew only one or two toy names. Others belonged to an extremely rare group researchers called gifted word learner dogs. These dogs could remember the names of dozens of different objects. Imagine a child knowing the names of 50 toys scattered around a house and consistently retrieving the correct one. That's essentially what these dogs were doing. Then researchers looked at something unexpected, head tilting, and the results were remarkable. The average Stizovs tilted their heads only about 2% of the time when hearing an instruction. 2%, barely at all. But the gifted word learners? 43%, more than 20 times as often. Suddenly, the head tilt didn't look like a reflex anymore. It looked like thinking. The dogs most capable of connecting words to specific memories were also the dogs most likely to tilt their heads while listening. That's a striking pattern, because it suggests the behavior appears when something meaningful is happening inside the brain. The dog hears a familiar word, recognizes it, searches memory, connects language to an object, and pauses. The tilt may be the visible sign of that mental process, almost like watching a person stop mid-sentence to think, or squint while trying to remember a name. A brief physical expression of concentration. And the idea becomes even more interesting when you look at what scientists have learned about how dogs process speech. Brain imaging studies suggest dogs don't simply react to sounds. They process familiar words differently from unfamiliar ones. They also separate the meaning of words from the emotional tone used to deliver them. In other words, dogs aren't just listening. They're analyzing the word itself, the tone behind it, the context around it. Multiple streams of information arriving at once. And if that's true, a head tilt may sometimes be the outward sign of a dog trying to put all those pieces together. But even that isn't the end of the story, because there may be another reason dogs tilt their heads, one that has nothing to do with hearing, vision, or memory, and everything to do with us. Think about what happens whenever a dog tilts its head. Most humans instantly react. We smile, we laugh, and we reach for our phones. We use softer voices. We shower the dog with attention. From the dog's perspective, that's valuable information. Dogs are masters at reading human behavior. If a certain action consistently earns affection, praise, treats, or attention, they're likely to repeat it. Not because they're manipulating us, because learning what works is what intelligent animals do. Over time, a dog might discover that tilting its head during interactions produces a positive response from its favorite human. And once a behavior starts getting rewarded, it tends to stick around, which means some head tilts may be reinforced by experience, not created by humans, but strengthened by them. It's a fascinating possibility, because it reminds us that our relationship with dogs isn't one-sided. We've shaped their behavior, and they've shaped ours. For thousands of years, each species constantly learning from the other. So, what's the real answer? Why do dogs tilt their heads? To hear better? To see better? To process language? To earn attention? The truth is that all of these explanations may be correct. A dog hearing an unfamiliar sound might tilt its head to locate the source. A long-muzzled dog might tilt its head to get a clearer look at your face. A gifted word learner might tilt its head while searching memory for the toy you just named. Different dogs, different situations, different reasons. The same behavior, and maybe that's why scientists have struggled to find a single answer, because there may not be one. We've been searching for one cause behind a behavior that could be produced by several different systems working together. Hearing, vision, memory, attention, emotion, all interacting inside one remarkably sophisticated brain. So, the next time your dog tilts its head while you're talking, remember this. You may be watching a mind at work, a mind that has spent thousands of years evolving alongside ours, learning our expressions, learning our voices, learning our words. We still don't know exactly which reason it is, and maybe that's exactly why we can't look away.